Hey YouTube, Ed here with Jack of all trades and welcome to another video. So today let's talk about what is better for personal defense, a revolver or a semi-automatic handgun. Let's have that discussion. And welcome back. So let's have that discussion. What is better for personal defense, a revolver or a semi-automatic handgun? But before we do that, if you're liking what you see here on the Jack of all trades channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below. Make sure you ring that notification bell so you get notified of upcoming videos. But the notification bell is really kind of a moot point because I just put out a new video every week, Saturday morning, 8 o'clock without fail. So every morning on Saturday when you get up, you'll have a brand new video from the Jack of all trades channel. So let's get right into the topic of discussion, and first thing we're going to talk about is the revolvers. Now, like I said, all my guns have been cleared. I'm dealing with safe firearms. They are all unloaded and we are safe to be handling them. So let's talk about the pros of a revolver, having a revolver as a personal defense gun. The first and foremost thing that comes to my mind is reliability. When you squeeze the trigger on these guns, they are going to go bang. They are extremely reliable. They are extremely dependable. If you load them and you pull the trigger, it's not very often that a revolver isn't going to shoot. The reliability of a revolver is inherent because they have less moving parts. The design of a revolver is very, very simple. They are just really, really simple mechanical devices that are super easy to use, and they are just inherently reliable as a result. Which brings me to my next point, ease of use. The simplicity of design lends to very easy using. All you have to do is push one button, you can open up the cylinder, you put in your 5 or 6 shots, you close it up. With this particular revolver, you have two options. You can either cock the hammer to shoot it, or you can just pull the trigger to shoot it. Either way, both of those work. Very, very simple to use. You can teach somebody to use a revolver in just a few seconds, quite literally. Now, to use it effectively will take a little longer, but the basics on how to load it and how to shoot it are very, very simple to teach somebody how to use. The third thing I want to talk about is durability, and these things are super durable. You can drop them, you can bury them, you can dig them up, clean them off a little bit, and they are going to shoot. I mean, they're just super durable, and they really do a good job of dealing with neglect, and maybe you're not quite so diligent cleaning these things. They really deal with that quite well, where semi-automatic pistols, maybe not so much. Safety. Safety is a big deal with a revolver, and this is one of the things, and this is one of the reasons I oftentimes will recommend a revolver, especially to a new gun owner. Specifically because of the way the gun has to operate. You either have to very intentionally cock the hammer to make the gun shoot, or you have to very intentionally squeeze the trigger to make the gun shoot. Now, the trigger pull on a double action revolver is usually very, very long, and it's actually quite heavy, and it takes a pretty conscious effort to actually physically squeeze the trigger to make the gun go off. So the safety on these is very inherent as a result of the design. Now, a lot of revolvers don't have an external safety switch, and that's because they really don't need them as a result. This particular revolver has what's called a transfer bar safety system on it, which means if you aren't squeezing the trigger, the transfer bar doesn't put itself in a position that allows the hammer to strike the firing pin. So just by dropping the gun is not going to go off. Banging it around, whatever, the gun is not going to go off unless you physically squeeze and pull the trigger. Now, some guns do not have a transfer safety system. That is something that you want to verify before you purchase a firearm, whether it does or does not have it. Most modern revolvers do have a transfer bar safety system in them. That's something you can ask your dealer before you buy a gun. Highly concealable. These guns are actually very, very, very concealable. As you can see with my hand, this revolver is not much bigger than my hand. I can just about completely cover it up with my hand. Now, that's a little unfair because I have big hands. I'm a big guy. But revolvers are typically smaller in size as a general rule, and it makes them highly concealable. Now, that's not always the case. Now, you take like my FN9, it's not much bigger than my revolver is, although it is bigger. But if you take this SCCY 9mm, it's pretty much the same size as the revolver with the exception of the back end here. That sticks out a little more, but revolvers as a general rule are highly concealable, and they're very easy to carry in a concealed carry situation. The next thing I want to talk about is the ease of drawing and how they feel in your hand. Revolvers actually feel really good in your hand. The ergonomics of a revolver, and the reason revolvers have been so popular for so long, is a lot of it due to the ergonomics of it. I mean, there's a classic nature of a revolver, and it's kind of a, for lack of a better term, gentleman's gun or a lady's gun, if you will. Very classic, very elegant. A lot of people like revolvers for that reason, but they also feel really good in your hand, and they actually are very drawable as a result. And especially if you get like a Ruger LCR that's got a bobbed hammer on it, which means the hammer doesn't stick out like this. You can only shoot it double action. You can't cock it. Those draw out of your holster really, really nice. They don't ever snag on clothing or anything like that. This could feasibly snag on a shirt or something on the way out, but with a little bit of training, that's really not going to be an issue. These are very, very nice to hold in your hand, and they're very drawable in a concealed carry situation. As long as we're talking about the grip, we can also talk about the size of the grip, which is my next point. A lot of times a revolver grip is a little bit smaller, and again, if you're a smaller framed person or you're a person with small hands, these grips are oftentimes considerably smaller than that of a semi-automatic pistol because there's no magazine in the grip. They don't need to be as big, so they've got a slightly smaller grip. And if you're a smaller person or maybe a lady or somebody who's got a small hand, these might fit in your hand a whole lot better. Again, it's a matter of just putting them in your hand and trying them out and see which one you like the best. Ease of maintenance. Revolvers are super easy to maintain, a lot of which is due to the simplicity of design. You don't have to disassemble them. All you have to do is open them up, clean them, oil them, run a brush down the barrel or run a bore swab down the barrel, make sure that the barrel is cleaned, put a little oil on the mechanism to make sure that the mechanism is lubricated, but you don't have to take them apart to maintain them. Ease of maintenance on a revolver is very, very big deal. You don't have to really learn much to maintain a revolver. You also don't have any magazines to clean. You don't have to take the slide off and oil and lubricate the slide, firing pins, or anything like that. Everything is accessible as the revolver sits. Just by operating the gun, I can reach the firing pin there. I can put a few drops of oil on the firing pin. I can put a drop of oil on the transfer bar and the hammer. Put a little bit of oil on my trigger. I can oil up my cylinder, clean it all. I don't have to take anything apart. Super easy maintenance. Finally, the last thing is revolvers are generally accepted in all 50 states. There are some states, you know, some of those less than friendly two-way states. Not that I want to mention any states specifically: California, Illinois, New York, Oregon, Washington, those kinds of states. Revolvers are generally pretty much accepted everywhere in the country, and largely due to the fact that it's got a lower magazine or a lower round count. But as a general rule, all 50 states do generally accept revolvers as personal carry weapons. Now let's talk about some of the cons of a revolver, and there are a few. The first and foremost that really comes to most anybody's mind who has this discussion is round count. Now, like this particular one, this Taurus 605, it only holds 5 shots. A lot of revolvers carry 6. I mean, that's where the term 6-shooter came from. With very few exceptions, that's all the bullets you get. There are some out there that might carry 7 or 9, but those are not the norm. Those are the exception, and a lot of times those are in a rimfire or chambering as well, which, in my opinion, is really not suitable for personal defense. That's another video. Round count is the first hit that the revolver is really going to get beat up on because you only carry 5 or 6 shots on board. Second part that's a kind of a con on the revolver, which is also part of being the pro, is that long, heavy trigger pull that you have when you're shooting double action. Now, if you cock your hammer to shoot this gun, trigger pull isn't a problem. You don't have any kind of issue whatsoever. But if you're going to shoot a double action, i.e. you're not going to cock the hammer, you have to pull that trigger quite a ways back to make the gun shoot, and it's quite heavy. I actually have a little bit of a struggle in this kind of a position that I'm showing you on the camera, squeezing that trigger to make it shoot. It's got a long, heavy trigger pull, which is inherent towards safety, and it lends itself towards safety, but it does not lend itself so well to accurate shooting. You really have to train quite a bit to shoot a double action revolver accurately. Third con that I've got with a revolver is when they break, it's usually serious. When they break for real, and you are likely going to have to take it to a gunsmith to get it fixed. You're not going to clear it on the spot. You're not going to repair it on the spot. You're not going to get it back functional on the spot. You're going to have to take it to the gunsmith or send it into the manufacturer to have that gun repaired. Fourth, short sight radius. Sight radius is the distance between the front and the rear sight, and the shorter this distance is, the harder it is to shoot these guns accurately. The shorter the sight radius, the less desirable. The longer the sight radius, the easier it is to shoot the gun accurately. If I take my FN9SC here and I line up the rear sight with the back of the revolver's rear sight, you can see that the front sight sticks out considerably further. This has got a longer sight radius, and in reality, the barrel isn't that much different in the length. They have almost the same length barrel. This is a 3-inch, this is a 2-inch, but still, you can see that that sight radius, that front sight is much further than 2 inches past the end of the revolver's barrel. Revolvers with a short sight radius are a little more inherently hard to shoot. Now, if you get a revolver that's got a 6-inch barrel, not quite so much of a problem. Even a revolver with a 4-inch barrel is going to shoot easier than a 2-inch snubby like this one is. Finally, the last thing that I can think of as a con as far as a revolver is if you're going to carry this concealed on an inside the waistband configuration. When you look at the revolver, you can see it's got a cylinder here where the bullets go. When you close it up, you can see you've got a bulge on either side of the gun, and when you've got this thing holstered on an inside the waistband holstering, that bulge can actually be kind of uncomfortable when it's pushing against you. So that's actually a con in my opinion. When I'm carrying a revolver, I'm typically not carrying my revolver inside the waistband. I might have a breast holster or a breast pocket holster, or I might be carrying it external of my waistband, but I don't carry a revolver inside my waistband just because of that bulge. It's uncomfortable for me, and I don't like that particularly. So those are all the pros and the cons that I can find using a revolver. If I missed any, or if there's something that you would like to add, please hit the comments down below, and I would certainly appreciate your input on that. So now let's talk about semi-automatic pistols. All right, the first thing, just like on the revolver, we're going to talk about is the pros. First, foremost, the biggest thing that's going to come up with a semi-automatic pistol is round count. This is my FN9SC. This is my typical daily carry or my everyday carry weapon. The standard capacity magazine for this gun is 12 rounds. Plus one in the chamber, you've got 13 rounds on board. That's a far cry better than 5 or 6 shots. So right off the bat, the semi-automatic pistol is going to beat out the revolver in the round count category. Triggers. Oftentimes, semi-automatic pistols have a better trigger than the revolver, specifically revolvers that are double action. Most semi-automatic pistols do not shoot in a double action configuration, with few exceptions. The SCCY being one of those exceptions. This is a double action slide automatic pistol. This gun does not shoot on a single action. In fact, empty magazine, empty chamber. I am dealing with a safe weapon. You can see right here, I'm going to try and get that on the camera. As I squeeze the trigger, you can see the hammer actually functioning right there. This is a double action semi-automatic pistol. And this has got the same kind of a trigger as a double action revolver. So this would be the exception to that rule. My FN9SC is a striker-fired gun. The striker-fired gun has an inherently better trigger than any double-action revolver I have ever shot, because I don't ever get revolvers with slicked-up triggers on them. The other kind of semi-automatic pistol that you get might be a hammer-fired semi-automatic pistol, and if it's not double-action, if it's a single-action style, that means every time the slide operates, it cocks the hammer, much like a 1911 does, and it's ready to shoot. Now the difference there is a 1911, you have to cock the hammer first unless you've already got it cocked and the safety is on, which is the way a lot of people carry a 1911. But typically, semi-automatic pistols will have a far better trigger than a double-action revolver. Again, if you cock the hammer on this, this is going to have a way better trigger than my FN does or most any other semi-automatic pistol out there. Reloads. If you do shoot the gun dry, reloading this is going to be much, much faster than a revolver. Now, you can train to reload a revolver pretty doggone quickly. However, it takes a bit of training, and even with speed loaders, you're not going to load a revolver nearly as fast as you're going to be able to load this, because loading this is just a matter of sliding in another magazine, racking the slide, and you're ready to go, and you're ready to shoot. Malfunction management. If you do have a malfunction with a semi-automatic pistol, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be able to clear it and fix it on the spot. If you have a malfunction with your revolver, like I said earlier, you're sending it to a gunsmith or sending it to the manufacturer to get it fixed. A lot of times with a semi-automatic pistol, you can clear the malfunction on the spot and get yourself back in the fight if you need to. Weight. This is a really subjective one, but this is an argument that I've actually heard people use. Semi-automatic pistols are typically lighter than revolvers. This is oftentimes the fact, but when you get revolvers like this 605 Taurus that are using aluminum alloys and things like that to help lighten them up, they do get lighter. Now, just holding these two guns in my hand, this Taurus is still heavier than my FN is, and that's because my FN incorporates a lot of plastic and polymers into the design of the gun, which inherently makes it lighter. But when you stick 12 rounds in a magazine and you load the gun, it adds quite a bit of weight to it. But still, my FN is far lighter than my Taurus is. Customization. Semi-automatic pistols are very, very customizable, which is another pro. A lot of them have got Picatinny rails up here that you can mount flashlights or lasers to. Very, very easy to customize them. A lot of them you can customize the grips. This one is no different. This has got a back strap I can replace. If you've got big hands, small hands, you can often customize the back strap or replace the back strap to fit your hand better. You can oftentimes change the sights on them, things of this effect. These guns are very, very customizable. You can get trigger spring kits. You can get longer barrels to accept silencers. You can do a lot of things to customize these. And if you're into customizing your firearm, you might want to look very closely at a semi-automatic pistol. Ease of shooting. Oftentimes, semi-automatic pistols are easier to shoot accurately for a couple of reasons. One, the trigger is generally better than on a double-action revolver. 2, your sight radius is usually or typically longer than that of a revolver, which lends towards accurate shooting and making it easier to shoot these guns more accurately. Now, this is not a hard, fast rule. A lot of these things that I'm talking about are general rules of thumb in most cases. You always have that exception to the rule, so don't beat me up in the comments and say, "Oh, I've got this gun that will shoot circles around any revolver." Yeah, you might, and that's not, I'm not disputing that, but as a general rule, these are the things that we're discussing. All right, let's talk about some of the cons of a semi-automatic, and the first and foremost thing that comes to my mind is failures. And it's not a matter of if your semi-automatic pistol fails, but more a matter of when your semi-automatic pistol fails. And I promise you, at some point in time, it will fail. It's a machine, a mechanical device, built by human beings, an imperfect creature. It is going to fail at some point in time. The upside is failures are oftentimes easily rectified. Unless you break something internally or damage the gun in some way, shape, or form, a lot of times you can clear the malfunction, but you are going to have a malfunction and you are going to have a failure at some point in time. It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. The second con is a little bit debatable again, and it's something that a lot of people bring up, and that's stopping power. Typically, semi-automatic pistols come in lighter calibers. 9mm, 380, even 40 Smith & Wesson maybe. Pretty light calibers in comparison to what you can typically get with a revolver, which is your 38 specials, your 357s, your 44 mag. And before you go into the comments and say, hey, you can buy revolvers now that shoot 9mm, I know that. You can buy revolvers that shoot a whole wide variety of pistol cartridges using half-moon clips and whatever. There's always exceptions to the rule. Typically, most of your semi-automatic handguns out there, the most popular caliber is 9mm, and 9mm is lacking in comparison to something like a 357 Magnum or even a 38 Special. Again, it's a subjective discussion. I don't really think it's relevant, but it's something that a lot of people bring up, so therefore it made the list. Finally, the last thing we're going to talk about as a con with a semi-automatic pistol is the complexity of the firearm. This thing's got buttons, it's got switches, you have to do stuff to load it, like rack the slide magazines in, this kind of thing. You have to learn how to disassemble it so you can properly maintain it, properly clean it. These are very complex mechanisms, which also lends itself to the fact that it's very likely going to fail at some point in time, but it also lends itself to the fact that you need to know how to take this thing apart. You need to know what all the buttons and switches and levers and everything does on this thing so you can effectively use it. The other part of this thing, and it doesn't really put itself in the complexity category, but it kind of puts itself in the ease of use category, is loading this. Now, anybody can slide a magazine into the magazine well, that's not a big deal. But a lot of these have got a pretty heavy recoil spring in them. This FN9SC has got a very heavy recoil spring in it. And for a guy like me, who's 6'3", 265 pounds, that's not a big deal. But you put this gun in my daughter's hands, who's 5'3" and 100 pounds soaking wet, this is a problem for her. She cannot load this gun without my help. The SCCY, on the other hand, when you look at this gun, is much lighter in the slide spring. The slide spring on these is much lighter. She can load this gun. So that is something that kind of lends itself to the complexity issue, but it's also something that you need to consider. Pick the gun up, rack the slide, learn what the buttons do, learn what all the switches do, learn how to operate everything so that you can do it as if it was second nature. Because if you can't work these things as if it was second nature, they're not much good to you. All right, after all that verbiage and all that talking and all that discussion, what's the answer to the question, which is better, a revolver or a semi-automatic pistol? You really can't say one is better than the other because it's completely subjective. You will get people out there that will say they would carry nothing but a revolver, and they'll list all the reasons why, and that works for them, and that's what's in their head. In turn, you're going to get an equal number of people that are going to say semi-automatic is the way to go. It's very subjective, and what you really have to do is you have to answer that question for yourself. Go into the gun shop, hold the gun. If you are in a gun shop that allows you to shoot them first, I would recommend highly that you shoot the gun, try the gun out, see which one you like the best, and make that determination for your own. Quite honestly, I like carrying both of them. They both have their ups, they both have their downs, they both have problems, they both have very good points to them. You just have to weigh the goods with the bads, make the decision for yourself, and say, this is what I'm going to carry. All right, so let's wrap this thing up and put it back in the barn. Now, if you're liking what you heard today and if you like what you're seeing on the Jack of All Trades channel, again, I would ask you very much to please hit that like and subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit me with some comments. I love answering comments. I try to answer as many of them as I possibly can. If I miss anybody in that process, I do sincerely apologize. That's not my intention. But I do try to answer as many of the comments as possible. I love interacting with my viewers and my subscribers. Really do appreciate all those comments. With that, let's go ahead and wrap it up. This is Ed with Jack of All Trades. As always, thank you for stopping by. Thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you to everybody who watches. And we will see you on the next video.